I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Alamanac North.
Today marks the kickoff of the Summer Challenge Open Your Heart food drive in Minnesota, which will benefit several local food shelves.
The Minnesota DNR and other agencies are teaming up for Operation Dry Water over the holiday weekend, urging people not to drink and boat.
And have you ever been to the Free Range Film Festival? We'll have a report on this unique event that has thrived for nearly 20 years.
Those stories and voices of the region coming up on Almanac North. Hello once again and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. And Julie, it's hard to believe that the 4th of July is this Monday. Let's hope for good weather.
That's right. It feels like summer is just rolling by. It took kind of a late start, but now it's going fast.
It's kicked in.
All right.
Let's hope it continues.
Okay.
All right, let's begin with the headlines.
We'll kick in too.
All right.
All right, thanks, Danny. As folks head off for the 4th of July weekend, flooding is still a big problem along Minnesota's border with Canada. This video from earlier this week shows the extent of flooding in the Rainy River area near Rainier. According to a Voyageurs National Park spokesperson, water levels are down from their peak, but the Rainy River is still 3.5 feet above flood stage. All resorts and other services in the park gateway communities are open, but some campsites remain closed. Visitors should check the National Park website for the latest information.
United States Steel this week announced plans to build a $150 million DR grade system on the Iron Range. The facility will produce a higher quality pellet that can feed direct reduced iron plants. U.S. Steel plans to break ground on the system this fall at either its Mintac mine in Mountain Iron or its Keetac facility in Keewatin.
A new law went into effect today in Minnesota legalizing edible cannabis products and beverages. Under the law, people 21 and over can purchase these products that contain no more than 5 milligrams of THC, the ingredient that gets users high. The products must be derived from legally certified hemp, which contains a small amount of THC, and not from cannabis itself.
And the Duluth Seaway Port Authority and its terminal on Rice's Point was top ranked on the Great Lakes in a recent Green Marine Environmental rating. The Green Marine Report ranks ports in 7 categories, including air emissions, waste management, and community impacts. The Twin Ports is one of 170 participating shipping entities in the annual report.
Several local food shelves, including CHUM, the Salvation Army, and others, are participating in the Summer Challenge Open Your Heart food drive this month. It's a particularly crucial time for food shelves, with kids home for the summer and inflation making people choose between paying for food and other household expenses. Here to talk about the local need as well as the statewide situation is Scott Van Dale, the Distributive Services Director for CHUM and its food shelf. Easy for me to say that title.
It's a fancy title for a simple sort of job of just food guy. So, yeah, no, happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are local food shelves seeing a fairly dramatic surge in usage right now?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen in our reports at CHUM, everywhere we've seen anywhere from 40% increase all the way to 70% increase since the beginning of the year. So there's a whole lot of new people coming to utilize our services.
So what then is the Open Your Heart Challenge all about? What is it?
The Open Your Heart Challenge is a challenge that was created in the state of Minnesota by Hunger Solutions Minnesota, which is an organization down in the cities that advocates for hunger relief agencies like CHUM. And it is an idea of putting it out there during the summer months where donations typically are way down.
Sure.
But the need is greater than it is most times of the year, only because kids are home from school. They're not getting that nutrition they need from the school when they're at school. So food shelves normally are inundated with extra families coming in during the summer months. So Hunger Solutions in the state came together and said, let's try to put something together where across state we can raise money for food shelves and get people and get food on the shelves.
So how does the money raising portion of it work? Is it a challenge grant?
It's a proportional match. So anybody that donates money, cash to CHUM or to Salvation Army or Second Harvest or any places like that, will all get inputted into a giant pool, and Hunger Solutions will issue grants up to $4,000.
Has the pandemic at all affected people who are trying to put food on their tables?
Oh God, yes. Oh God, every day it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for our families. I've seen people say, we beg, borrow, and steal for anything we can get and put on our tables. So the food shelf is sort of in that same situation right now. We're down about 8,000 pounds a month in donations. So really, we're just looking for any nut and cranny that we can find to put stuff on our shelves so we can feed our neighbors in need.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you mentioned that there were a lot of first-time users, new people coming in. What's driving the influx, do you think?
Just the sheer cost of things in life these days. We see a lot of nurses, we see a lot of teachers, we see a lot of people in really well-paying jobs, which you think are well-paying jobs. But when you're paying $5, $6 a gallon of gas, and then you go to the grocery store and you see chips are $6, or I went to Ace and I spent for 5 light bulbs, it was $55, and you think to yourself, like, if I was somebody in need, how am I able? I need light bulbs, but I also need milk, and I also need butter, and I also need eggs and cheese and all that stuff. How do you do it all? So that's what we're seeing. People are sort of coming to that crisis mode of, what do I get first? Food or the basic supplies and basic needs.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing a lot of elderly people too who might be on fixed incomes?
Yep.
Because
Seniors are definitely on the increase, mainly because Social Security and a lot of public assistance programs haven't reacted in time. And they're actually getting decreased from what we hear from Hunger Solutions in a time where everybody needs more. Mm-hmm. So things are going down for most people while other things are going up.
Mm-hmm. I read where mobile food drops are made on Tuesdays and Thursdays here in Duluth.
Yep.
Can you explain that? What's that like?
CHUM does a thing every Tuesday. We go to different areas around town, mainly HRA properties, Tri-Towers, Midtown Manor, Steve O'Neill Apartments. We basically just bring food in a van. And we're there for a couple hours, and people that are living in those properties can come down and grab whatever they need and take them right back upstairs. We're trying to alleviate the burden of using transportation or using feet or whatever to come down and get food. They can literally just go downstairs and go right back up and make it quick and easy.
Has there been a big response?
Oh God, yeah. Most days we're out of food on those days. We schedule 2-hour blocks. We're out of food in about 45 minutes.
Really?
Yep.
Where do you get most of your food?
From a bunch of places. Second Harvest obviously is a big one. Grocery stores in town, the Co-op, Super One, Cub Foods, and then we have our normal donation people that just go to the store, buy some extra food when they're able to, and drop it by our door.
Mm-hmm. Is it particularly hard for you to fill the need for fresh food, for frozen food? Most of the time when there are food drives, people tend to bring canned goods, dried goods, things like that.
Yeah, I think for CHUM in particular right now, we're abundant in fresh food, and we're abundant in meat, and we're abundant in dairy. The stuff we're struggling to find is pantry staples. Peanut butter, cereal, mac and cheese. Those things we all have in our pantries don't exist. And if they do exist, they're super, super expensive. I'm just looking at normal costs and stuff, and you're looking at corn that went from $1 a can to $3 a can. So those things are just a whole lot harder to find. But produce, because it's growing season, is abundant. You can't really stop produce from coming up from the ground. So there's plenty of it to go around, and it's a good thing because meat, produce, and dairy are the 3 top things that people are looking for when they're coming to a food shelf.
So someone who needs food, how do they plug into the food shelf? What do they have to do?
Basically nothing. COVID has made life a whole lot easier for access. Basically, it's showing up when we're open. I would say if you're going to any food shelf, get there early. Wednesday we gave away 72 boxes in 40 minutes.
Wow.
So get there early. You don't really have to do anything but give us your name, your zip code, and how many people are in your family. That's all I ask for. We'll give you food, and you walk down the road.
Can you return week after week after week?
We allow everybody to come as often as they want, whenever they want. Yep.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Hunger Solutions. Talk about that a little bit.
Hunger Solutions is a unique organization that isn't really known outside of the cities, but they are a statewide organization, and they advocate for all of us. They are the ones going to the legislature. They are the ones going to the governor. They're the ones going to all these different power people down in the cities that make decisions on funding. They're also the people that tally all the numbers for us, figure out where the need is, where the pockets that we're missing. demographics. Is it the senior citizens that are in need? Is it the families with small children that are in need? They are the ones that have that key information. They also hold the contract for TFAP, which is government commodity food, that the government purchases and then distributes across the country. That is done through Hunger Solutions. So Hunger Solutions is pretty much, if you're looking at a hub and spoke, model, they are sort of the center, and then they feed all over the state to all of us and give us the information and the food that we really need to keep us going.
And
Scott,
how is an organization like CHUM and you yourself connected in with that?
We're connected. There's a membership fee. I serve on the board of Hunger Solutions. I'm one of me and there's somebody out of Bemidji that are the key voice holders on the northern side of the state. And we just, we try to give our region a voice since we're lots of times left sort of in the dust, and everything's focused in southern Minnesota.
are you looking for still more volunteers? And if so, how does that happen?
Volunteers are easy. We always looking for volunteers and volunteer groups. We do stuff 5 days a week. CHUM's open 5 days a week, pretty much from 8 until 12:30 every day. Volunteers are welcome to swing by, knock on the door, and lend a helping hand.
Talk about the best way for people to tap into the Open Your Heart Challenge right now.
The best way is to write a check, drop off cash at your local food shelf or food bank, mail it. Either way, cash is king. We say, just because the buying power that we have far outweighs what you could go to the store and purchase on your own. It used to be for every dollar we would be able to spend $7 worth of food. Obviously, with inflation, that's dramatically decreased.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, for every dollar that we get, I can spend about $3 to $4 worth of food. So a box of macaroni and cheese that would cost you $3 would not cost me any more than $1. So the goal is to flood food banks with money. So when things are available and come onto the market and they come in pockets, we're able to grab those quickly and spend that money immediately.
It certainly sounds like hunger is a statewide issue. It isn't just up here in northern Minnesota, Twin Cities as well.
Yep.
As you look at on the people that live in the state, are there pockets though where hunger is more relevant than it is, say, in the range?
I would tell you the range is probably a big spot.
It is.
That they are not seeing resources that we see here, or definitely they're not seeing down in the cities. We have folks that drive all the way into town from Hibbing on a weekly basis to get food and cart it back up there. And when you think of gas prices being at what they are, you're driving an hour and 20 minutes to come get free food to drive back an hour.
But they
and 20
need this food desperately.
But they need the food desperately, and they have pockets up there. So this individual comes down and he fills those pockets where there's gaps up in Hibbing.
Now, you mentioned that you're able to buy things at a lot better cost than most people.
Yep.
Is that because of the food bank system? Or?
It's the food bank system, and it's the sheer quantity that I'm buying. I can buy pallets of food rather than individual boxes.
So we have about 30 seconds left, but and I know you did go through this already, but talk about some of those key things that people can do to help you right now in terms of items that you need, in terms of funding that you need, and in terms of support.
It's all of it. It's money. Any kind of money that you can provide goes a long way for me. As far as food coming in the door, don't be ashamed if it's a box or a can or anything like that. We've gone to the point where for every jar of peanut butter that comes through the door, it goes right into a box into somebody's hand. So you're helping somebody. Don't ever be ashamed on how much you can give or when you can give. I just ask that you continue to give and continue to support what we do.
All right. Scott Mandel with CHUM, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Now for Voices of the Region. Each week we talk with an area journalist about the stories they are covering. Our guest today is Heidi Holtan from KAXE Community Radio in Grand Rapids.
Aaron Squadroni was our guest recently. He's an architect by training and an artist who's created many public works of art on the Iron Range. Aaron's art is inspired by place. He describes himself as being an explorer of the landscape of the region, and then using that inspiration for art that's public consumed. Aaron says that public art is different. It's not in a fancy museum. You don't have to pay to see it, and it's part of the place we live or we visit. Aaron has created a public art piece, a steel canoe framework with designs of turtles and loons from Leah Yellowbird. The sculpture sits near the pedestrian bridge over the Mississippi River by KAXE Studios in Grand Rapids.
To think about public art, you have to think about, again, the context. And so if you look big picture at like visually, what is a town or a city, what values is it expressing? Because if you look at most towns, the values that I see are commerce, entertainment, things that give you pleasure, buying things, money. I think what public art can do is express some of the other values that our communities have, because visually those get overlooked or overwhelmed by signs that are telling you to eat here because it has the best hamburger. If it's expressing other things like the history of the place, or something more spiritual, or something that is important to learn, or something about the community itself, then I think it's doing something that's much needed.
Our Strong Women focus groups at KAXE have come to an end, and our final gathering was at Balsam Moon Preserve in Pine River. They have a mission to share an alternative, sustainable, spiritual place of peace, sustainability, renewal, and partnership with earth, spirit, and people. We were there to talk about climate change. Laura Connolly is our facilitator for Strong Women, and she talked with me recently about how women bring community, adaptability, and a globally informed, locally enacted mindset to the climate crisis. Some of the themes that emerged from the conversation were ideas of community building and learning Indigenous ways of caring for the earth. Laura talks here about one Bemidji woman's ideas.
Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should, right? And so she had talked last time about this idea of, there's crab legs in northern Minnesota, and we should be questioning, why are they there? And should we even actually be purchasing them when they have to travel thousands of miles to get to us? Or should we be focusing on the things that are sustainable and getting our local systems in a place where we can get all of our needs met locally?
And finally, there was a Juneteenth celebration at the KAXE Amphitheater on the Mississippi River. Organizers of the event were Sarafia Gravel. She is the Community Equity and Anti-Racism Organizer for Kutaska Community Action. Also in the conversation was Nathaniel Coward. He's co-executive director for VEMA, Voices for Ethnic and Multicultural Awareness. He's currently running for City Council in Chisholm. I asked them why celebrating Juneteenth in a small town in northern Minnesota is important.
I think that it's important here because there's a community of color here that has for far too long felt invisible in Grand Rapids and the surrounding area. And so I think it's important to bring to light within this community that there are people of color here, and they're important to this community and they should be celebrated. And also just, to let those folks know also that they are important to this community and that we're here to celebrate them.
Well, I celebrated Juneteenth, all my life. So, but coming here in small rural town, it's a different meaning, seeing a lot of young Black children of color, including my own, born here, raised here, and hear the struggles that they have in just the school and the communities and the ideals that they have. So to have a celebration of freedom that can maybe, get people to start talking about these issues and come together and see, a lot of things like, Black excellence, right? Most of the time, people think when they see people of color, they're not from here. And in fact, they've been here, they're born here.
The The July 4th holiday weekend is a popular time for boating in the Midwest. Unfortunately, it's also a time when drinking and boating lead to accidents. This weekend, the Minnesota DNR and its public safety partners are stepping up enforcement during Operation Dry Water, urging boaters to leave the alcohol on shore.
All of us up here want you to know that if you are drinking and boating, we will be looking for you. During Operation Dry Water, which is July 2nd through July 4th, we'll all be stepping up our efforts to keep our lakes and rivers as safe as they can be. You'll see more law enforcement personnel on the water. While we may wear different badges, our approach is the same. We have zero tolerance for people boating under the influence. If you make that choice, you will not get a warning and you won't get a second chance. You will be arrested, taken to jail, and have to face the heavy penalties that comes with your decision. Our goal is that every person who heads out on the water returns home safely at the end of the day. If you're drinking and boating, you don't share that goal, and you're putting everybody's life at risk, including your own. In any given year in Minnesota, nearly half of all fatal boating incidents involve alcohol.
The DNR also reminds boaters to always wear a life preserver while on the water.
With all the summer blockbusters coming out, people are now flocking to the movies. But have you ever seen a movie in a barn? The Free Range Film Festival in Renshaw, Minnesota does just that. Producer Megan McGarvey visited the barn to see how this unique festival got its start.
The Free Range Film Festival started in 2004. It's just a way to show our friends' movies, really. We did not expect it to turn into a real film festival. And perhaps some people would argue it's not quite a real film festival because it's in the barn and there's mosquitoes and the elements, but that's approximately when it started.
There was no land attached to the barn anymore, but we wanted to do something in it. So we cleaned it out, we swept the pigeon poop, and we stretched up some Tyvek, and a friend of ours was a filmmaker, and we said, well, we'll show your movie. And then we said, well, maybe there's some other people who want to show movies in a barn in the middle of nowhere. And sure enough, there were. There was film from Germany, and one from Australia, and one unmarked one about a random unicorn. So there was sort of this just joy of showing things that you might not normally see.
It takes a lot of work just to keep the barn, I think, from falling over. Annie's parents now have taken over the ownership of the barn, which is great because they're doing a great job as stewards of the barn. They put new siding on a few years ago, and they shored up the basement, which, as I understand it, was starting to collapse. And so the amount of work that they put into it just in the last few years is staggering, but you don't really notice it because it's still the old, the same old 1916 architecture around you for the most part.
It was actually originally built by a guy who wanted to sort of keep his son down on the farm. His son want to travel and want to get into trouble, and so he thought, well, if I build him this big, beautiful barn, he'll stay. His son left after 2 years, but it's state-of-the-art, beautiful beadboard in the main section. It's built into a hill, so it's actually the main loft areas where we show the films, and in this area that we're standing, we have 2 smaller screens. And then the basement is built into a hill, so it's really cool. It's actually 30 degrees. I set up an art exhibit down there, and anyway, we pump up the cold air that is in that basement into the loft, and so people who have come here before sit in next to those vents because they know some cool air might be pumped through. And we open up the doors and put some fans on, and people come ready to just sit back and relax. We
brainstormed a list of possible names, and the only 2 I still remember all these years later is Free Range Film Festival and Farm Fresh Film Festival. And I think we went with Free Range because Annie and Johneke, own an organic farm, and I just think that probably makes more sense.
Free range film was sort of, the idea is that it's out in the country, the setting is the countryside, but the kind of content that we're showing is very much open range as well, because the content is so sort of hither and yon. invite filmmakers to come. We don't give prizes, but we do give pretty hefty bags of organic vegetables to anyone who shows up. And we talk about their film, and they're able to meet audiences who are really engaged. There's, limited cell phone reception over here, so you're sort of stuck watching movies when you come here. You can't flip through your phone. When you see something in a context that you're not expecting it, you oftentimes are maybe a little bit more willing to, think about it or willing to talk to other people about it. We also really love the conversations that happen around what folks have seen on the screen. People should take a chance on the Free Range Film Festival because at our core, we are about curiosity and joy in the art of filmmaking.
What we're trying to do here is something a little bit magical and whimsical and unexpected. And so, if people like the idea of seeing movies in a barn, if that's something that appeals to them, I hope they'll come back next year when we do it again, and hopefully the year after. And maybe until all of us die, we'll just keep doing it every single year, I hope.
Next year's Free Range Film Festival will be held on June 23rd and 24th at the Barn in Renshaw. Go to freerangefilm.com for more info. Well, we're out of time, but you can keep up with our latest updates by following Almanac North on Facebook and Twitter. Visit the WDSE website for program updates and more information about the station. And download the PBS video app for on-demand viewing of Almanac North and your favorite PBS programs. Julie, so many events going on around the region this weekend, culminating with the 4th of July festivities on Monday.
That's right. And one thing I want to mention is people keep their pets indoors during the fireworks because pets get really...
they don't like it.
They run away.
Absolutely. Thanks to our guests and the crew in the studio. With Julie Zenner, I'm Dennis Anderson. Happy Independence Day, everybody, and be kind.